there are some other activities that will be up and coming, but I'll probably feature them in another week. And just wanted to, I'm sure others will remind people, but be aware of the heat and the burn ban, and let's all be super, super, super careful. And safe with your pets and yourselves and others. I just was like, ooh, 108 on Sunday. And yeah, I just saw that earlier. Yeah. So.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my. Well, that's a good reason to go then to Councillor King to find out, how is Amity's water system?
The water system is hanging in there. We're in the midst of quite a few improvement projects which are stalled at the moment, but our public works is working so hard just to keep things going. The place where we have the intake right now is not a good location, and that is why we've had projects underway for years trying to get it relocated, but they are out there weekly, daily, changing filters, trying to keep that going. And Amity has good, clean, drinkable water, and there's a lot of people working really hard to keep it that way at the moment and always.
I realize that's probably not what you were going to share with us, but I was like, whoa, we need to be talking about water since Takesha brought it up.
Yes, and on top of that, I spoke with the city administrator yesterday, and we are good on chlorine for our water as well for the next little bit. And he's been in touch with emergency management and everything. So we have a plan going forward in case things get iffy. But again, a lot of good people planning ahead to do the best that we can.
That's good. I just saw that a community swimming pool in Yamhill County was like, we are just going to close down for a little while until we have an amount of chlorine that's extra. And I thought that was a wise plan. So apparently I'm just going to jump around because I'm going to ask Mayor Watkins, is the city opening the pool? Is it open? And what about chlorine? And you're muted.
Let's try that again. I after last week's debacle, I got mad and went out and got a new Chromebook, which works pretty well, but I'm still learning things about it. These are great little machines. I had no idea. So anyway, yeah, and I meant to ask our city manager before the meeting today, and I forgot what exactly. Nobody's really talking about the swimming pool other than everybody wanting to know if it's going to be open. And other than that, I think we're still on pins and needles waiting. I haven't heard any comments about chlorine. The last couple of days, we've just been distracted with, I think, trying to keep cool more than anything else. Just worrying about that and trying to figure out what's going on there. A lot of the focus here is on, we've started the transmission line work from from our major, our intake out to down to Meadow Lake Road. So I think a lot of our focus has been going on that right now. And that and trying to keep the park clean. People are our lower park is just packed every day because it's been so warm. And there are lots of places around there where people can get down to the water, which is great for them, and it's good. But it's kind of remarkable how difficult it is to pick up a plastic cup, I know, it's just the way it goes. So that's that I've just been distracted with those things, and I've been kind of waiting. I haven't heard anything from the office regarding the pool, and I figure that if they figure it's ready to go, they're going to let us know because they want to get it done too. So that's kind of where we are on that. And that I have a question actually for you and for the folks on here, which is we're getting ready in July to do our first in-person council meeting. And we have a couple of council members who don't believe in vaccinations. And we're trying to figure out a little bit how to handle that situation. And I wanted to reach out to the other cities and see what they have done with regard to that, because, you know, we have people, other council members who have immune compromised families, they've got small, you know, they have some concerns. So I was just wondering about reaching out and seeing what other folks might be dealing with and how they've dealt with it.
Yeah, what is the city of Amity doing?
So we have actually been meeting in person this whole time. We have folding tables that our council sets up at, and so we were able to space those over 6 feet apart. And so there's also been a Zoom option, which you can continue. I know Carlton's been doing that. Just continue that. So if any counselors aren't comfortable, you know, either because they're unvaccinated or because there are unvaccinated folks, you know, continuing with Zoom, it's not optimal, but it's an option. And then we've also, now have some counselors that are unmasked, but we have counselors that are unvaccinated and just still masked. And so it's really just what everyone is comfortable with. And then, you know, we do have audience as well, you know, participants, and just to keep spacing, hand sanitizer, and make sure everyone's respectful of different comfort levels.
Okay. Yeah.
So a range of experience and options, it sounds like, and flexibility.
Yeah. That's what I would say. I know Sheridan's been, I believe the city council has been meeting in a similar way. I know that they were doing Zoom or not Zoom, but another method for a while. But I know that Rotary and Chamber were just doing spacing. And last year we were, for revitalization, we met outside when the weather was nice at the park, which was nice. But I think it's the comfort level thing, what's comfortable. And if you can get the spacing, that's what we've been doing with the Chamber and Rotary, is just meeting in a location where spacing. And I think some people bring lunch for some of those meetings, so they are having the mask up anyway when they're eating. So the spacing seems to be the biggest thing.
Okay.
Yeah, what do you think, Mayor?
Well, you know, we've got a majority of the council that are pretty adamant about being very careful. And so we're going to have some more conversations about it and see what, you know, what's the option is. Like you said, either we can do the spacing. Our building is not optimal for some of that stuff. That's one of the problems. One of the big conversations we're going to be having next meeting is whether to try to repair our building or try again to build a new city hall. And we'll see how that goes. But one of the reasons is exactly what you're saying, the spacing, and also our old building provides really poor reception for any kind of electronic meetings. So I guess I'll let you know next week.
Yeah, do you think, Mayor, that if folks who were uncomfortable were able to call in or teleconference in, do you think that would be physics successful? Like, are you going to be able to get them on a screen, you know, with good reception?
Well, we've been doing Zoom meetings as it is, you know, all the way through. And so we can do them. They're not optimal. And because our building is old and mostly cinder block, there's a lot of interference, electronic interference. The AV guys have come in and looked around and just kind of shake their heads, walk out the door and say, good luck. So, you know, we really would like to get away from that, at least for the council. And obviously you've been in the room and you know it's not that big. So we've taken out the dais, and we do have small tables that we can move around, and so we can spread people out. We're not stuck with you know, the lineup. But yeah, I was kind of trying to get a feel for some of that today, and had people saying, well, it's private medical. I'm not going to tell you. So um, we'll just see how we work it out. We'll figure out something. But
From what I understand, the governor is on, like, very, very close. I mean, I realize the numbers are very close, but also the announcement is very close of, you know, opening up things so that there isn't, right? It's actually kind of mind blowing to me, Takesha. Like, what? It is going to happen. So there won't be under whether or not we reach the 70% before restrictions are lifted. At the restrictions lifted stage, it's going to be you can wear a mask or not a mask, but there's no requirement. But again, as Councillor King noted, that it'll then come down to who's comfortable with that situation.
yeah.
And I've often
So the option is going to be what?
sorry.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. The option is the governor is just going to be saying that masks are optional. Is that across the board?
Right, I'll forward to you, or I'll just forward to all of Roundtable, the thing I got from Jody Christensen on behalf of the governor's office, kind of reiterating what post 70 or post almost a 70 looks like. Because like, guessing we might get there before we get to 70. The magical 70 number. I'm sorry, that's dismissive. The 70% number was set in place, but as we get closer to it and as vaccinations in that category slow down, it starts to feel like some kind of magic number. That's how maybe it should. But at that point, it's all voluntary, all what you would like to do or not to do.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do think it's you know, Councillor King pointed to the, like, are you comfortable with it question, and if you have councillors who are uncomfortable with that situation of somebody of being potentially exposed, so I don't know, like the Delta variant of concern of coronavirus,
Yeah.
I do think it's important for them to be able to have the option of, you know, coming in remotely. Although Wennenberg would be a really great place for summer council meetings. Yeah, you were going to say something, Councillor.
No,
I
I
was.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that it's gonna take everyone is gonna have some readjustment time, because like I was saying today, it feels odd for me to take off my mask while I'm outside. Like I'll find myself outside away from people and I'm still like, oh, I don't need to wear this. So regardless of comfort level, there's gonna be this transition period where we all kind of find our new comfort levels.
Yeah. I still see a lot of people wearing masks that are out walking by themselves out in the park or something. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, but it's become such a habit. And I think we've gotten so concerned that we are really hanging in there.
Yeah, and I used to worry about the like I don't know, power imbalance, I guess, of a group being present and then one person being like zooming into it, as it were. But I feel like a lot of groups and councils and our board of commissioners have gotten really used to that. So there's a lot of deference to, like, you know, asking them for their thoughts or bringing the ones who are operating remotely into the conversation.
I'm sorry, I'm at my house and I'm just watching this like Belgian's horse trailer. And I mean, this thing is like the size of a double trailer, truck and trailer. And it's trying to make a curve on this little tiny street that's barely big enough for a Volkswagen to make a right-hand turn. I mean, this thing is like 50 feet long.
Oh,
and that was the
Carlton.
corner of the house he was going around.
That's pretty great.
It's pretty terrifying because it was huge. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm
Wait,
totally
was
off
this a
course.
horse trailer?
It's a looks like a huge stock trailer, but it's all enclosed. It's, oh my gosh, now he's trying to make a left-hand turn from Cunningham Street onto uh, Meadow Lake Road, which he's having to back up in order to get enough clearance to do that.
Oh my gosh. I feel like you should take your video and show us, and then we can screen share it so we can all watch this.
Yeah, he did it. He did it. We have the truck repair shop here, and it's kind of remarkable the things you see coming. We're 2 blocks away, and I think the road mapping sends them down this way because they're streets, but our streets are very narrow.
They are
Tiny.
very little streets in Carlton. Amity streets are very capacious compared to that.
Yeah, I don't know why we did that.
I wanted to ask you one question about water. Is the city of Carlton, are they using the city of McMinnville? Are they sharing Mac Water and Light Water this year during
Yes, we did sign the agreement with Mac Water and Light. I think we're not looking at starting that probably up until maybe July. I know the July meeting, I think we're going to be awarding the contract for the reservoir dredging, which is when and so once we get that contract awarded, then we'll start work on that. So sometime towards the end of July, 1st of August is when we'll be starting to tap into McMinnville's water, because they'll be turning this off up here to get that dredged out. So yeah, we've got that done. It was an interesting process, but we got the agreement signed on both ends. So
nice. And then how much capacity expansion are you going to get from the reservoir with the dredging? I know I should know this, but I don't.
Well, I don't either. So I think we're even. I'm not sure.
I'll call Shannon real quick.
I'm not sure that I've really heard. I know that I have been told that we are operating at about half capacity right now of what we should be able to have up there. But I don't know what that amounts to in acre feet. So I can't really tell you that. But it's several weeks ago, we actually got a field trip. Commissioner or Councilor Ward Mullen and I got a field trip up to the reservoir, which I had never been up to. We've heard about it for years and never been up there. It really isn't as big as I imagined it to be, number one. And number two, you can stand on the bank and look out into the water and you can see the silting and because it's all surrounded by active timberland. So we've got a lot of drainage and a lot of silting coming out from the logging. Well, actively logged timberland is what I should say. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that, and what happens there with the dredging. It's beautiful up there. Somebody said we should have, why can't we have camping and fishing up there? I don't think we want people doing that in water we're going to be drinking. There's a reason McGuire.
I feel like there's so many different. I feel like there's so many different policies around that. The city of McMinnville, because Takesha, you live in the city, right? Or you get city water. The city of McMinnville is, and the city of Portland, very strict, nothing inside of here. But we lived in Bellingham, Washington, for a number of years, and there, there's boats traveling back and forth across. You can go swimming in it. People live in houses adjacent to it. And then the city, what is it, Barney Reservoir, I think, up in the Coast Range for Washington County cities, maybe Tualatin, you can go paddling around in it all you want. So it's amazing the differences in policies.
Yeah.
Here, though, I did notice that I'm trying to remember the details, but there's something about how there was a landslide from a county road many years ago that slumped into your reservoir. So I don't want to take credit for it, but I think that at some point we also impeded your reservoir's ability.
I think, yeah, in 1998, we had a landslide. And that's when I think for a while we were offline. We didn't have water, period, until they kind of got, that put back together. So there is that. And then there has been since then, we're right in the middle of Weyerhaeuser land. So and they're actively logging up there. So, during the winter time, you've got plenty of silting and runoff from that too. And the combination is, done nothing to help our water supply. And with this year, particularly what we're looking at, why I think it's probably a good year to be getting that dredging done. Because all of us, I can't even imagine what anybody relying on groundwater is looking at right now. I'd be scared to death. Well, we all are anyway.
Yeah. I was down in the Rogue Valley last weekend, and the Talent Irrigation District is a major supplier of irrigation water for cannabis and pears and wine grapes and pasture there. And they thought that they had 14% of capacity, and that was the lowest they'd ever had. And then they discovered that they were not taking into account the siltation that had happened in their main reservoir. And so they had even less because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, this is scary. My husband does a lot of columns and working on Idaho. He still keeps in real close track over there, and it's really scary over for those folks. You look at the water, and they're at 55% right now, which they should be way higher than that. I mean, they should be up there, but their drainages are really, really down. And that's water that comes, from the Snake into the Columbia. So we're looking at, it's not a good situation all the way downstream.
Yeah, the last I saw of the snowpack or the snow water equivalent in the Cascades and the main watersheds that feed the Willamette Valley, so not the Klamath, but the other watersheds in the Rogue, was that we had 7% of median snow water equivalent. So like the past 30 years as compared to, the past 40 years as compared to this year, we're at 7%, which is a remarkably low number. I did want to note that I've been following as closely as I can the timber mediation, which I'm not sure if you're aware of it. You know about the timber mediation?
Which one?
Yeah, so there's in 2018, I think it was, timber companies and environmental groups put dueling ballot measures on the ballot regarding terrain and buffers along streams. And as a result of seeing that impending fight, the governor and her team brought together the timber companies and environmental groups to attempt a mediation. And so they have an outside mediator, and they're working through issues. And one of the issues that they're working through is streamside buffers, specifically for small water systems for drinking water. Because right now, the the Oregon Forest Practices Act defines your buffer from your streams as a function of how big your stream is. So as it gets bigger, your buffer gets bigger, up to 60 feet. And the environmental groups, I want to say, proposed a 500-foot buffer to the biggest, probably as a provocation, realistically. But so that now they're trying to figure out, because the state of Washington and the state of California have much larger streamside buffers for the size of stream. And as you get smaller, the buffer's really small. But those really small ones where you dig under and you're like when you dig under the soil, you'll see running water. Those are some of the most important because they're actually filtering actively as opposed to flowing. So my hope is that we get to a spot when we're done with mediation, when they're done with mediation, and we actually have sufficient buffers to keep silt from going into your reservoir.
Yeah, well, I think about the other cities. Amity is probably, you know, I can't even imagine what you guys are. I'm glad to hear that everything so far seems to be okay, but I worry about everybody because we just don't have a lot of water in this valley, which is kind of odd given the amount of water we've got running through it, but it's not all accessible.
Councillor King, you had mentioned like the changing the filters, but is it a result of sand? Is it silt? Is it suspended solids? What's the issue with trying to move it?
So I'm probably not the one to give the best details, but so our water improvement projects have been underway for years, and one of the main portions that are stalled right now is that we need to move our intake to a whole different part of the river. So the water is drying up. There's just not the capacity in taking. It's harder on our equipment. Just everything it's pulling in is filling the filters. And so if they're not constantly cleaned, and that's not something that we should be having to do weekly, they should just run. But it's just given the lack of water in the spot that we're at right now. So I don't know what in particular is clogging them, but the lack of water and the position is what's causing the current issue.
But you're not sure why it's drying up there, or?
So we have known that the spot that was chosen, that our intake has been coming from, has not been sufficient for our needs for quite a while. And so probably the last 20 years we knew that. And the last 5, we've had grants and projects underway since 2016 to get this moved. So the funding's in line, we're working on it, we have a plan. To get into a little more detail, there was actually some archaeological findings found when our new place was chosen by the engineers. And so at a national level, USDA and tribal leadership is trying to work out the logistics of how we can move forward with our crucial, critical project, because it needs to be done. And we're just in a position where we need to be told what we can do, because regardless, this needs to happen. We can't have 1,700 people with no water. And so it's frustrating, and it is scary because we know what needs to be done and we're not able to do anything about it at this moment.
Yeah.
And it's the delay of the archaeological and findings.
So they've been found, and so SHPO and tribal leadership, they will come back with comments and you know, their ideas and requests of what we need to do to move forward. And we've been waiting for almost a year now to get those in writing. And some of the draft comments are things that are not super obtainable for Amity to do. They're not realistic. And so we have USDA at the national level, and we've reached out for some other advocacy, just trying to figure out a way that we can all move forward to be respectful, responsible, do what we know is right, but it has to be realistic to what we're able to do.
Whew. All right, well, thank you for that more detailed update about it. It's helpful to me too, since I talk with lots of folks regularly. I do want to note too that your challenge in the city of Amity is mirrored by the challenge of moving the intake in the city of Willamina. You know, they don't have the archaeological findings as far as I know, but it's still an enormous cost to move their intake.
Another issue we have coming up is the Salt Creek Bridge, which will be getting removed and replaced in 2022-23, and that is actually houses at the moment our main water transmission line into town. So we'll be removing that and replacing it. We're actually going to go under Salt Creek instead of reattaching to the new bridge, so it won't be a temporary move. It will be a new location, which should give us more capacity, more stability, more seismic comfort, you know, for the future. But that portion of the project is also on hold as we figure out these finer details.
Yikes.
Yeah,
And
because it's
originally
running
there
on the
was,
same.
yeah.
Sorry, the bridge is coming down one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. There's a timeline there. There originally was conversation about having a temporary bridge side adjacent to it. Is that still a consideration?
I think that it is a possibility if necessary, but just as far as the engineering goes and the plans, it really makes cost sense wise and long-term wise to have it permanently under Salt Creek, because we had the geological findings from that come back and it's doable and sustainable that way. So that really seems like the way to go. If for some reason our plans get thrown in a loop there, like the temporary bridge, but it just didn't seem like the best given.
Yeah, I understand. That makes sense. I know that Yamhill County Public Works has been trying to coordinate with ODOT because the Whiteson Bridge, so off of 99 going onto Bridewell Road on Salt Creek, also needs work, and we did a round of work to get it up to a higher load rating. But the major work on it to get it so the load rating goes away is going to take longer, and it has engineering involved. But we really didn't want to be working on that. We wanted to get it so that you could drive across it, but not at the same. We didn't want to do the big work at the same time as ODOT's work, because that would be an enormous. Well, I mean, it would be awful for people on that road, and well, the detour from Amity.
And there's concern for emergency services and stuff during that time that our bridge will be down. So I think they have it covered, but just, if you had work going on at the same time, you have to be able to get there as quickly as possible in some situations.
Yes, very much so. So this is the value of relationships, right? Is making sure that we're all working together. The city, the state, and the county all at once.
And ODOT has been good to work with. They're really trying to do what they can to have our projects be helpful and work with each other.
That's good. That's very good to hear. And then can you remind me, Councillor King, about with the possibility of funding from the county for water infrastructure work? Is the water intake move is really already funded? Is that correct? It's just a matter of waiting for it?
Yes, so we have that all good to go with USDA. So that's been funded. So our two major projects, that intake and the water transmission, we have taken care of. And our next top priority is stuff that we had to take off of those projects because of the amount of funding. Yeah. And so they're really, those next two that we're asking for help for are really top priority. They're in the water master plan that, they wanted them done in 2017. But when it came time to cut down, whittle away to the funding that we're able to receive, those didn't make the cut.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the things that I found challenging about the Senate earmarks for transportation and infrastructure was discovering, well, our field representatives discovered that the project had to have already applied for the state water revolving loan fund, even though many jurisdictions knew they didn't have the funding for it and they couldn't afford the loan if they got it. So that's such a limiting thing that I'm glad that the county and my colleagues have committed to setting aside some money, because there was such a limitation. Our field reps were so disheartened to discover that.
Well, no, we definitely appreciate just the fact that, you guys are talking about it and willing to help where you're able, because when we were reached back to and said, well, could you supply the 20%? To say no, that is disheartening, but that's the reality. We can't afford 20% of that project, and that's why we're asking.
Yeah, exactly. I should note, since we're talking about water, that my colleagues and I agreed to set aside, I want to say it's like 33% of the American Rescue Plan money specifically for water and sewer infrastructure in cities. And I'm hoping also one irrigation district, but we'll see. And so what that means is it's about 6.8 million that we've agreed to set aside. And that's not enough even, well, it's just barely enough if we covered all of Carleton's need. But obviously we're not going to cover all of Carleton's need.
I was going to say, that'll cover our sewer project perfectly.
Unless we see a letter from every person in the city of Carleton, and even then, we'd probably see a letter from every person in the city of Amity. But my hope is that we can figure out, something in the, depending on if it's like a $200,000 project or a $1.5 million, that we can get some of these projects funded kind of right away. And I know Sheridan has, there's at least one, I think it's an update to the water and sewer master plan, which was the request that Public Works and Sheridan submitted to us. And that one is like, I'm pretty sure that we're going to agree to fund it simply because it's a smaller amount, right? Yeah. So sorry, Carleton. But it's hopefully it's
you come and explain it to our people over here.
yeah, totally. My hope is it can be like, well, the county has put this into the project. Now state, can we find this amount? And then feds, can we find this amount?
I know our city manager and our finance manager have been working their little tail ends off on grants and keeping track of the applications and doing everything they can, and as well as going ahead and looking for loans and funding. I wouldn't be surprised if they're picking up pennies off of the street and sticking them in a piggy bank for it. Actually, they're that adamant about getting it done. So, we're working on it. We're not taking anything for granted. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, Wiley?
I want to say that the city of Amity's the transmission line to the reservoir was like the first thing, right? It was the top line. And I feel pretty comfortable that we can get that one with county money. And it's such a big deal, right? Like the transmission line from the water.
That would be amazing, and it would provide so much more security.
Yes.
You are into the town,
Yeah, and as we know, with the power outage during the winter, it's all of a sudden when you're like desperate for it, it feels like everything else has to go away just to focus on getting your water secure. So, I'm hopeful.
On that note, the water improvement that we had done up to this point, we doubled our capacity in storage and reservoir on the very first portion of that. And so we did hit that critical 24 hours and we're out of water. But had that happened 2 years before, we would have been out of water. So I'm thankful for the improvements that have been done thus far, because it definitely saved us this last storm.
That's a great detail to have. Yeah. And I realize we kind of like jumped around. Are there any other city updates or chamber updates? Because I drove us around the circle maybe a little bit faster.
Right now, we're just kind of looking forward to the summer and hoping that we things keep going the way they're going and we can have Carleton all the way open and busy. It seems to be, I don't know about the other cities, but we certainly seem to be picking up activity. You come downtown on the weekends now, there is no parking again. So it's a problem, but it's a good thing to have. Wiley says everything's great.
Wiley looks
Wiley.
very happy.
Wiley, come on over here. No.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
Wiley wants some attention. Yeah.
Well, I did want to note that we continue to have vaccination go up in the county. It's just that very few of them are in the category that gets us further along in our attempt to get to a low risk status or to the 70%. But Virginia Garcia and Yamhill County Public Health and Providence and Unidos continue to work on getting more people vaccinated. And I suspect we're going to continue doing that even after the magical numbers are reached. But I'm hopeful that we get to those numbers pretty soon. I'm eager for our county to be meeting in person in a safe manner too. So, and it's we have our staff has requested that we don't do in-person testimony, kind of unless it's an invited testimony, like a land use hearing, because of their logistical challenges and just running the meeting and keeping everybody straight and taking the minutes. So, I'm really excited about being in person.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. Just kind of, I think, getting used to being around people again.
Yes. We were in Southern Oregon and I met with a lot of wine producers and fire people, like fire ecologists. And it was so productive to meet in person. It's amazing having an in-person conversation. You actually catch a lot more.
Yeah.
At some point, we should talk about this too, because
Yeah,
it's valuable.
I've been wondering about that.
Yeah, we'll discuss it. I'll send out an email to folks about it.
Yeah.
But on that, there's Yamhill County is also about to approve its budget, so hooray for that. One more step in the process, and actually that's a lot of what we've been doing lately. So,
and it looks like you have been busy too with other things.
Yes, I have been busy. We can talk about that some other time too.
Yeah, there is that too.
Councilor King.
Yeah. Oh, before we got off here, I just wanted to make sure I want to extend an invitation. Amity's Public Library kicked off their summer reading program, but they will be hosting entertainment in the park a week from today, next Tuesday, the 29th at 3:30. They're going to have Reese Thomas there. He's a comedian, juggler. I've just heard great entertainer. But it's open for all. It's open for anyone. There's lots of space. And I know that Anne and the ladies from the library would love to have a good turnout. So if anyone is free next Tuesday at 3:30, Amity Park will have some entertainment.
I'll have to bring my computer with my hotspot. So we can run our meeting. We could run our meeting from there.
Okay, I figured maybe this group might be busy, but if you know someone that would enjoy it, I'd love to see people there.
We could run our meeting from there. I'd like that.
Yeah, one time a long time ago, back when it was just Takesha and I, well, there were other people, but I think we actually even screen shared a governor's press conference that was happening at the same time, because we all wanted to know, like, are we going to the next phase? But we also had our meeting, so it's kind of fun. All right, well, I will see what we can do. Thank you for that.
Right.
If there are no other comments, we will see you next week, possibly at Amity Park. And stay safe out there, and maybe cross some more fingers and toes for moving on to the next phase, maybe even recovery from the pandemic. All right, stay safe, everybody.